So how do we manage acid rain? We need to think back to our pollution management model. So every type of pollution that you're asked to describe a management strategy for, you need to come back to this model. So you've got the process of pollution and you've got strategies for solutions. So the strategies are that first you alter human behavior through education, providing alternatives for people, perhaps penalizing them, or perhaps giving them incentives. So these are the kinds of strategies you're thinking about in the very beginning. And then you regulate pollution. That's your next strategy. If you can't get people's behavior to change, well, then you're going to have to regulate it at the source where the pollution is being emitted. So now you're going to look at technologies that clean up the process before the pollutant is released. If all of that fails, then you've got to clean up the environment from the pollution. So you perhaps have to use technology, or you've got to reforest. It depends on the type of pollution that you're dealing with. So every type of pollutant will follow this model. The first two here are preventative strategies. So if we can get people's behavior to change, or if we can stop the pollutant from being emitted into the environment, we've prevented pollution. The third strategy is remediation. Now that the pollutant is out there, what are we going to do about it? How will we solve the problem? So human activities, what are the human activities that release the pollutant into the environment? So what is it that's going on? And then we can start dealing with that based on the specific type of pollution. The release of the pollutant, what do we know about the technology that goes on? Is there something we can do to mitigate that pollutant being released? And then the long-term impact, it's out there in the environment, it's happened, it's in the past, we've got to clean it up. So I think I've talked about this pollution model in the past, thinking about litter. So the best thing that could happen about litter is people don't throw it in the ground. That's a human activity. And we can have campaigns to encourage people not to throw litter. The second thing we can do is have bins around. So they're going to throw litter, well, let's get it into the bin, contain it before it gets into the environment. The third thing is it gets into the environment, well, then we've got to go and clean it up, fish it out the lakes, pick it up off the road. So those are our three pollution management strategies, and they apply to every type of pollution. So for acid rain, the first thing, if we're going to change people's behavior, we can educate people about alternatives to burning fossil fuels. So encourage them to use public transport, let them know where that public transport runs from, how much it costs, give them incentives to use it, and then promote fuels such as gasoline that contains less sulfur. So here's one that's Shell V-Power, and they advertise it as being powerful. It improves your performance, your car will be so much more powerful, and therefore that's exciting. But actually this is also a much lower sulfur gasoline, so it's got less contaminants in it, both for your car but also for the environment. So trying to get people to switch over to this type of fuel, even though this fuel is more expensive in the gas station. Okay, so if we haven't changed people's behavior, now we need to regulate the pollution at the source by setting standards or using technology. So we can have policies that encourage low sulfur fuels. We could say you can't use certain types of fuels, you can't sell certain types of fuels. We can switch to alternative energy sources, so perhaps we're starting to use nuclear or hydroelectric. That's a decision that has to come at a countrywide level. In coal, you can remove the sulfur, but that's quite expensive. You can remove the sulfur from waste gases after combustion. So if you're burning coal, before the coal leaves the chimneys, you can actually remove the sulfur from those waste gases. So an example of this is industrial scrubbers. So you think of a scrubber like scrubbing something clean. An industrial scrubber is actually almost like a wash that the gases pass through, and it washes out some of those sulfurs that would then get into the environment and cause acid rain. So they get washed away before they ever leave the hydroelectric plant, or I'm sorry, the coal burning plant. And then if we're going to remediate, so this is very difficult with acid rain, there really isn't a lot we can do to clean it up. Basically, forests are going to take a long time to recover. Obviously, replanting right away until the acid rain problem ceases, you're just going to plant and those seedlings are going to be damaged by the acid rain. But over many, many years, forests and lakes, 40, 50 years, will start to recover. So here we're cleaning up the environment using technology or reforestation and repopulation of ecosystems.